Hello, everybody,
Hello.
and
Hello.
welcome to Coffee Class with Young Screenwriters. We are an online resource community for up-and-coming screenwriters, and today I have a very special guest that not many people know. He's usually really shy,
Introverted.
introverted man, likes to hide in the shadows. It is John Warren.
Oh,
Oh, I should have introduced Adam right then. But yeah,
yeah.
I'm not shy.
no, Adam's not shy.
Nobody
I'm a
really in this
slut
room
for
is shy.
attention.
Nobody's going to be called shy in this room, I don't think.
No, not anymore. Not anymore. Maybe freshman me sitting in the back making scared faces.
Freshman you, yes, sitting on your hands,
Mhm.
looking down, looking at your knees.
That was me in a nutshell. So
Came out of that.
I know. I've blossomed.
Yeah.
So John, you're at your NYU office again. How's that going?
It's going well. We're back in class, back in the no longer on remote so it's good. Students, it's much better for students, but it's much easier for me. So yeah, all is well. I'm back in my office and at NYU, and yeah.
Amazing.
Hello, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sandra.
So today, while we wait for people to come in, we'll just chat a little bit. But the topic today is we are doing an Ask Me Anything session with John, where we all get to ask John anything.
God.
And we mean anything.
We mean
anything at all. But
I have some. I don't know if I have questions prepared. There's some discussion topics I'm curious to hear John's opinion on.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh man.
Nothing important. I'm out of focus again.
Get yourself in focus. But yeah, for like a loose subject area, I encourage questions about screenwriting, film, John's experience in Hollywood. Ask John about more Hollywood stories. Experiences on set, film school, things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, look. Kicking with Kaya gives us a great question to kick this off. Oops, that was it. Here we go. How'd you know writing was for you?
Oh, good question. Yeah. How did I know that? I think I'm a fairly, I have always been a fairly avid reader, and it's a good question. I've always been a reader, and although I couldn't have articulated, way back when I started, I was absolutely enchanted by story and character and human behavior, and so that's it for me. And the more I read, the more, and I think this is true for anybody probably in this room, you have to have a degree of confidence to go, you know what, this is really great, but I have a feeling I could do it. And so that's what happened. That's how that happened.
I think, long story short, John's a creeper, right? He likes to listen in on people's conversations.
Oh, I'm a complete. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm just.
And you're the worst type of creeper. You're the creeper with an opinion on those people you're listening on.
Yeah, I had breakfast 2 mornings ago with an old buddy of mine, who was kind of a big deal manager, producer, and he and I've known each other for 30 years. And as we were having breakfast, I realized I was stealing lines of dialogue from him. And I'm not at all embarrassed by that. And I stole them, came back to my office, wrote them down, and I will use them, So yeah, I'm a creeper.
You're like you're one of those notebook guys who catalogs fragments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Danny said he had a wonderful line that I'm playing with another short story, is the one I wrote that we may talk about today or may not, but and Danny said a wonderful thing. Too late. Anyway, this manager said to me, he said, I said, how many clients do you have now? How many people are you managing? And he said, 65.
Wow.
And I said, Jesus, 65. He said, yeah. he said, I have one rule. And I said, what's that? He said, only one of them can be crazy every day. And I said, do they hold to that role? And he said, never. So
that's great.
And that's the line I stole from him.
Is that your philosophy for teaching too? When you go into class, you say only one of you today can be crazy.
No, I don't say that. I said only one of you could be super entitled.
Oh, rough. Ouch.
And then if I can keep it down to 2, I'm a happy professor.
Amen to that. We have a ton of questions, John. I don't know if you know this, but you are very popular.
Oh God! Well, that's because I come in frequently. If I came often, I wouldn't be. So that's my secret. Yeah. So what do we got? What do we got?
Special. All right. So we have a bunch at the top from Jay Jeet. Let's see which one to start with so that we get to other people's too. Well, here's a question me and Adam can tackle real quick. Are there any quality writers' room available online? Any recommendations? Any recommendable online platform for the table reads? We do that every single Thursday for free in the Discord. We give a prompt for a scene, and then anybody who wants to submit can submit, and then we read it aloud. You get to hear your work, and we critique it on the spot, give some feedback.
There's
and I don't know
there, John. There were some really good ones last week.
Yeah, because we asked people to do short stories, like complete beginning, middle, end, in under 4 pages, and everybody delivered.
3 to 4 pages, and some people wrote great ones.
Really?
Really good.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool idea.
I know. And so I don't know anybody else doing that kind of thing for free. I think honestly the best way to do writers' rooms is to find people you want to do it with and ask. It's the way to jump in.
Make friends with actors, and they will love to do readings.
Absolutely.
It's a great and just pay for pizza, right?
Buy the pizza pie.
Let's just see. Hey, John, here you go.
What?
Is 47 too old to get into the business?
No, definitely not. No. In fact, ironically, should I say, let's just say 20 to Eric, imagine when you were 21, did you really have any knowledge of how the world worked and any objectivity about a point of view of a story at 21? I won't speak for you, but it's unlikely. So at 47, you've got some history, some life under your belt, and probably have more to say.
Mm-hmm. At Young Screenwriters, we say anybody younger than John is young, right? And
I'm so old. It's just frightening how old I am.
I was going to make a joke when I turned 30 in April, and I was like, well, can we call ourselves old screenwriters the moment?
I've wondered that since we started this damn thing. I mean, I'm sure people, it says young screenwriters, they walk on, see my face, and they go, is it a joke? What is it? April what, Adam? Can you
April 17th, baby. Oh. I'm on the cusp of Aquarius and Taurus, I have been told.
Right,
which counts for something in my personality, which is probably irredeemable.
Let's see. Okay, Nicole says, do you have any good tips for getting through the writer's block / losing motivation through the process?
Getting through writer's block and losing motivation through the process. I guess I never really experienced writer's block, but I'm always kind of looking for story, and not necessarily to write a screenplay or a short story or a novel or anything. I'm just always looking for material, and as I said just 2 minutes ago, and then I steal it. And I would recommend, the world is, it's rich. I mean, there's piece today in the New York Times that, oh my God, I said to my wife this morning, I can't wait until the book comes out. So Jeffrey Zucker got fired, head of CNN. Why did he get fired? Because Chris Cuomo who got fired in December, wasn't getting his money paid out. Zucker wasn't paying him out for the rest of his contract. So Chris Cuomo said, by the way, why has anybody commented on Jeff Zucker's girlfriend? And then Jeff Zucker got fired. So the machinations of that story, and then Jake Tapper said, that's interesting. Chris Cuomo wasn't getting his money fast enough, so he blew the whole goddamn CNN up. Now that is really great story stuff to me. I mean, the leveraging and the careers that got killed off in like that, all because of vendetta. It's fantastic. It's Shakespeare.
John's just like, it was terrible. Like, it was terrible. It's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
Rich material.
It's rich material. It's just people just going for the jugular. I mean, it's great.
So I would add one little piece of advice for people who are stuck, which is, take time away from it. If you're feeling burnt out on a story, it's like this. Just put it away for 2 weeks. Don't look at it, and come back at it, and like try to remember the seed of what made you excited about the idea in the first place, because you probably made a choice early on that put it in the wrong direction, and feeling like something's not working is very frustrating. So if you feel like, oh my God, I'm burned out because something's not working and I'm losing excitement for an idea, try to come back to it and remember like, oh, what was like the spark? And maybe go back to the beginning and be like, maybe if I take it in a different direction, it will be more exciting. That's my take.
Great advice.
Actually, in like an amazing little chat that we had inside of our Discord, we were all just talking about writer's block and how we get around it and things like that. And Sandra ended up putting together this really, really amazing document that compiled all of our advice. And so now, as long as Sandra's cool with it, I think she said she was. I'm putting it into a PDF right now, and then gonna make a link so people can check that out. But
put that in the vault. Yeah,
exactly. That's what I just never, for some reason, it did not dawn on me, but I'm doing it right now. So I will have that to share with you all. There's some really, my advice is on there, but there's some really good advice on there that, not everything's going to work for everyone. That's kind of how it goes. So hopefully something on there will be useful for you.
Let's do an earlier question.
Sure.
So basically this is a two-part question, which is basically like, what should the ideal track for a screenwriter be who's located away from any film industry, meaning like a country that's not, doesn't have a robust film industry, and aspiring to write screenplays for major Western film industries? What would be the ideal roadmap for one such person? 10 years ago, I'd say, well, you have to move to Los Angeles, and I'm sorry, right? That's less true now that tech companies like Netflix are like, don't really care, and the pandemic made all first meetings Zoom meetings anyway. I will say, doing well in Western competitions is a great first step, right? Like, it's a great way to get representation initially, but at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. And the reason why everybody said move to LA, so you can make friends with people in LA, so you can get through the slush pile. I don't know if that's disheartening.
You're absolutely right, though. I mean, even longer ago than that, you had to be in LA, and now you don't have to. If you can write a great screenplay, they'll come and find you. Because that floats the boat.
Well, I will say you probably have to push it still and get it read.
Yeah.
Which is hard,
It can't just like live on your computer and then you close your eyes.
But if you've got something great, I mean, John's right. They will try and sell you. It's unfortunate that most people have an inflated view of their own work, especially when you just start out, right? Everybody thinks their first screenplay is the thing that's going to like, wow, agents are going to get back to me in 5 minutes. They're going to be like, gee whiz, Adam, you're the one.
Yeah.
Do you want to direct?
Where have you been all my life?
Sorry,
but the fact of the matter is, if they can't find somebody who's viable, who has talent, then they don't have a way to make a living.
Yeah.
I mean, these dudes are all working on commission. So if they don't if they don't have a stable of writers, directors, whatever they have, they've got no income. So if that's why, by the way, if somebody calls them up and he calls a Jeff Jacobs, the CA, and says, "Hey, Jeff, I got a really, 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 really talented writer," Jeff's all ears, because without that, he doesn't have a livelihood. They're looking for talent.
For sure. And I just posted the link to all the awesome advice that Sandra compiled. I made it a little pretty link right there. So if you click that, you will see the PDF that has like 5 people's pretty comprehensive approach from very different angles to countering writer's block. So hopefully there's something in there that'll help you out.
Well, the one thing I would add just to that last conversation before we move on to the next question is doing coverage at an internship for me was one of the most valuable experiences, because I realized how many represented writers suck, right? Like, wow, these are solicited material. These are solicited manuscripts that people have asked, like people are representing these people, they've gotten into the system and these aren't very good, like, and you get to read like just so much of like that inflow of like the world coming in. You start to realize that, great material that just really just is incredible is actually not very common. Because everybody's reading the best screenplays of all time, there's an inflated sense of like, it's like the greatest novels of all time. You're just reading like stuff that's successful. You should read stuff that's not successful is my point. It'll change your perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, I said, I'm sorry, go ahead, Alexa.
Oh, go ahead. You're good.
A lot of my students or former students, I kind of help slip into internships or jobs, and they have to do coverage. And inevitably, they all come back to me, and they'll call me or whatever, and they'll say, "God, there's a lot of bad material out there." But reading a bad script can really be enlightening. As Adam was saying, it can really help you understand. What's the difference between a really good script, and because when you read a good one, you keep turning the pages.
Especially if you're trying to give notes on how to make that script better, because I mean, it's like with anything where when you teach something, it really helps you to master it. When you have to go into someone's work and instead of just looking at it and saying like, ew, yuck, when you have to go in there and you have to figure out like, okay, why is this not working? What were they trying to do? What isn't connecting? What's going on? That kind of thing makes you like 20 times better of a writer yourself, and like gives you such a strong understanding of story. And if you want, we also in our Discord have a script swapped where people will pretty routinely go in there and swap their scripts with other people for feedback. And if you've never given feedback on someone's script before, I strongly recommend hopping in there, even if you don't have anything yourself, just like offering to read. You'll get a zillion people asking, but pick a couple and see what's up. I think it'll help.
So we've got a lot of questions, Lexi. Can we burn through some of these?
Yeah, let's go. All right. So Patrick says, to what extent do you struggle with writing evil/devious characters? And do you have any tips for writing them?
Yeah. Writing an evil/devious character, one thing to keep in mind is that character, we'll speak to him as if he or she really exists, they don't know they're evil. They are highly motivated. So Hannibal Lecter doesn't think, I mean, he knows he eats people, but he doesn't perceive it. So what you want to do, and an actor will tell you this when doing a character that's evil and devious, that they find a way to embrace that character. That Richard III believes in himself and believes that he is has reason to behave the way he behaves. And so you have to empathize with that character and make them real, because their motivation, they don't see as evil. They see it as necessary. And I think that kind of helps to build a full-blown antagonist or villain. This sounds cliche, maybe not. When I'm playing with that idea or that character, I know where he or she comes from. And I know there's a foundation for their behavior. And it sounds bizarre, but you come to have great affection for them, because there's a foundation for their behavior.
Yeah, I'd say, like, John doesn't consider himself a supervillain.
Evil. No.
He doesn't.
I hear it a lot.
But he's just the protagonist of his own story, To him, all of his actions are motivated.
One might take the objective point of view that he's a piece of shit.
And with good reason. I think more people should feel empathy towards me. And that makes you guys the villain. But that's
you're just misunderstood, right?
Yeah, I'm misunderstood.
Yeah, you're misunderstood.
A lot, as it turns out, a lot.
I think there's the quote that's that you were basically how actors see villains or antagonists. The moment you judge a character, you can't play them, right? So you, the writer, are like judging your characters, like from a moral point of view, like saying like, "Oh wow, what an asshole! I really hate this person." Now you might the behavior that of those characters, you might be able to say, "Well, that's abominable, that's irredeemable." But you have to be able to go inside their head and say words that come out of their mouth, like, and it's not going to feel real if you're judging them, right? Because then you're outside.
That's right.
You're not thinking from their point of view.
And by the way, one of the fun parts about this whole business of creating evil characters is that, I contain the multitudes. Meaning that in me somewhere, there is that person. So I've told this story in here before. It was a long time ago, so I'll say it again. But I was working with Ned Beatty. Ned Beatty was a great actor. Anyway, and we were having lunch one day on the set, and I said, "How'd you get into acting?" He said, I was taking some classes in college, and I took this acting class, and I found out that, in acting, I could be a murderer, a villain, an adulterer, a homosexual, a pedophile, all of those things, and because they're all in me, and I could do it in the theater or on film and not get arrested.
What a great! What an point of view.
And I was just kind of like mouth agape. I mean, my lunch was falling off my jaw. I was like, "What the fuck?" And I just kind of found it endearing. He said, because all of those things are in me. I know they are. And this was a chance for me to explore them without getting in trouble. And I thought, first of all, the candor of that comment. And it's accurate. We all contain the multitudes.
I would say that, like, when it comes down to like, this kind of connects to our approach to flaw, which is that, sometimes people think of flaw as something as one word, like selfish. And something that we really, really encourage people to do is to make it a statement of belief that revolves around being selfish. Adam, I feel like you're good at these examples. Could you?
All right. Like, instead of, sort of like, oh, he's selfish and he never spends time with his family. His negative belief, his flaw might be, I'll never be loved unless I have that corner office. Right? Mm-hmm. Something really specific, like something really that defines them. It's a belief, like the lie they tell themselves that defines everything they do. Mm-hmm. And the inner need is the truth that will set them free, right? But that flaw could be something like, well, there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to be an executive, right? But if you want it for maybe the wrong reasons, you know, and like it depends on the context of the story. Like I think that's a good way of getting at that. So forces people to be deeper with the character than just sort of saying like, he's selfish. He, you know, whatever. Because then selfish to selfless is such a boring character arc. It's so vague.
Yeah, Chris Turner says, you know, humanize your villain. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's
go
see.
Another question. We've got so many.
I know. All right. Sylvester says, question. When you love something or really like a piece of work or screenplay, what is your process to study it and really soak it in?
Is this something, Sylvester, that you've written or something that you...
I think somebody else, like art you admire.
Oh, somebody else. Oh,
like you go see a movie,
okay.
you love it. You wish you wrote it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big advocate of being analytical about story and these scenes or the film that you're talking about that you love. Why do I love it? Why is it resonating for me? Because if it's resonating for you, if it's evocative, the writer is doing his or her job. So how have they done that? How have they reached that? How are they reaching some kind of universal truth? And you study it and really soak it in. Again, I mean, I think it's a smart approach to saying, okay, I respond to this material. Why? And just analyzing it and then bringing that information to your own work. I was watching something. Oh, I know. I was another class, not a writing class. This other class I teach. I played some Stephen Sondheim for them the other day. And those that you don't know Stephen Sondheim, you should know Stephen Sondheim and listen to Stephen Sondheim. But great talent, a genius. And what he did was he understood that to cut himself open and expose his vulnerability as dangerous, because we walk around, we learn not to, we learn don't expose yourself, somebody will take advantage of it. But as an artist, you cut yourself open, you expose your vulnerabilities, and that's what reaches other people. You reach them through the authenticity and honesty of what you're writing. And Sylvester, that's probably what you're responding to. You're responding to someone who has written something that is emotionally true and honest. And that's what we're all aiming for.
John, have you read either of Sondheim's books, Finishing the Hat?
I have Finishing the Hat. I haven't read it yet.
It's so good. I read it right when he died.
I've got to read it.
It's so good. He's got so many good nuggets and great anecdotes.
He was a genius.
Yeah, but he explicitly his point of view that he puts forward is that he was very much not a genius. He sees himself as a clever person who worked 8 hours a day and like learned craft early. Like his whole thing that he was taught by Oscar Hammerstein was every song should be a one-act play with a beginning, middle, and an end. Every character should have an objective. Like a lot of the same stuff is in there. I think you'd appreciate it.
Oh, that's interesting. I've got. Somebody gave me the book. I've got to read it. Yeah,
you have to.
Yeah. Anyway, Sylvester, I hope we got to. Yeah.
So to tie into this, what Coffee Class started as was every single week we would break a movie. We would come in and we would identify the different plot points and break down how the movie works and its structure. And that came from John and how when you were a student, I know, shocker. But remember when you were at AFI and you said that your professor just kept telling you about scene headings and you were like, F this. And then this is my version. And you went to the library and you said, screw this guy. I'm going to do it myself. And you got scripts and you just sat there with a yellow legal pad. See, I know this story, right? I know the story. And you went through scripts and you wrote down the things that you thought were important, like the important beats that happened. And that's how you developed your understanding of structure, right?
Exactly right. I mean, I stripped the Alexi, very good. That's why you're the best student. I stripped the outline out of scripts to understand what the writers were doing and how they were building the stories. And I did it over. I did a script. I tried to do a script every day. Sometimes I couldn't get all the way through one, but I was certainly doing, while I was American Film Institute, I was certainly doing 2 scripts a week, that just for my own education, you know, and satisfaction. And then it became a part of my brain that I looked at Indiana Jones and I thought, oh my God, the obstacles come every 10 pages or every 8 pages. So, I would have said every 25 pages, but no, they're coming like that. And anyway, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did I go off on a tangent there? Did that make sense?
No, that was exactly what I wanted you to talk about.
Believe it or not, this is all about the tangents.
Yeah, today is the tangents, John.
That's frightening. That's frightening.
But yeah, I think consider coming to. We should be doing a movie coffee class soon, and we'll do the tentpole breakdown. You'll get to see how we do it, and then you can see. You can try it on your own and see.
I'm reading. Can I go off on another now that you
go for it?
You should have never said it, but I'm reading. I'm rereading. I've got to read that Sondheim. But you're right, Adam. I've got to read it. But I'm rereading Death in Venice. And you know, which is just a masterpiece, and it's just a brilliant book, a novella, really. I mean, it's pretty short, but as you're following this character who is following this little boy down to the beach every day, and this is a character who doesn't see himself as evil, although he's potentially a pedophile. He never acts on it, but he is following that little boy, and he's in love with that little boy, and he stays on in the hotel so that he can watch the beautiful little boy every day. And Thomas Mann was just such a great writer that you identify. I should say, I identify. I go, okay, he's so passionate about this thing, which happens to be a little boy, beautiful little boy, that he keeps putting himself in greater and greater and greater jeopardy of being caught. And you're like, even though I know the story, I keep thinking, oh shit, you're going to get caught. You've got to quit following that little boy.
It's amazing what being in a character's head, no matter how abominable by moral society standards, if you put yourself in a character's head and you tell us what they care about and what they're afraid of, you will empathize with them. And that's just a weird.
And Thomas Mann does that. And you're like with the protagonist going. He gets up in the morning because he knows this is about the time the boy goes to the beach.
Yeah.
And you're going, and you're kind of reading the book, and you're going, Jesus. Don't go to the beach, man. Don't go to the beach. Yeah. Anyway.
And I think that's, you know, to not get too serious, but that's where you have a responsibility as a writer, like where it comes to the point of like which perspectives do you want to tell, you know, things like that. It's like who do you want? What are you trying to say? You know, like as a writer, like what are you trying to say to people? What do you want people to take away from what you're doing? And thinking about like what your responsibility is. I'm not necessarily like I don't know that story. But I do think it's something interesting that I think about a lot.
It's from 1912.
That'll do it. Yeah.
Thomas Mann was a tormented, complex man. But you know, yes, Alexi, to your point real quickly, you know, a lot of that goes back to that question about is 47 years old too old. You know, it takes a while to understand your voice. Mm-hmm. And I think, Alexi, I'm piggybacking on your point. I hope I am. That, you know, it takes a while to understand this is the kind of story I wish to tell. This is the kind of story that is not for everybody, but it inspires me. I mean, yeah.
For sure.
I have a colleague. I was going to say I have a colleague here who. Who's a good friend. I like him. And his taste is Hallmark movies. Those shitty, you know, Christmas. They're always Christmas, and she gets cancer or some shit. I don't know what happens. And then they fall in love, and then she doesn't have cancer anymore. I don't know. And he's like,
that's it.
And I'm like, I can't watch that shit. And he says, what are you reading? I said, Thomas Mann. And he's going, oh, he was a cold, corrupt German. And I go, yeah, I'm digging it.
John, I think that you and me, it occurs to me right now, just possibly maybe a little bit, have like completely different writer sensibilities, perhaps. Maybe just like completely opposite, maybe, which I think is super fun.
I think it's great. I kind of love it.
I do too.
Love it. Oh, the other thing is, this same guy, he says to me, like, right after the movie comes out, he says, have you seen Power of the Dog? And I said, yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And he goes, I couldn't, I walked out. I said, you walked out of Power of the, you walked out? He goes, yeah. I said, it's brilliant. He goes, no, it's not brilliant. And I restrained, you'll be happy to know, Alexi, I restrained myself when the Oscar nominations came out to not go, hey.
Guess what, buddy?
I think there are two types of readers in general. Like, there are people who read for escape, and then there are people who read out of morbid curiosity. And I think John falls into the morbid curiosity camp.
Oh, absolutely. Strong.
Like, you want to read about fucked up people and fucked up situations doing fucked up things. And that's, there's a lot of great drama about that shit.
I mean, complexity. Give me complexity.
Yeah. Well, what's the next question, Alexi?
The next one here is more about the business side, which is, how should you begin the process of shopping your script? So like, after you've done all your drafts, you've passed it around, you've got it as good as it can be, you say, this is my thing. This is good. What now? Assuming you have no manager. Or go ahead.
Yeah, this is one of the questions that really kind of torments me, and because there's no easy answer, and there's no blanket answer, and there's no one way. By the way, I think one of the reasons, and I hope one of the reasons that young screenwriters work so well, is that you have a culture, and hopefully you're building a network of people. Somebody out there is going to say, I'm now doing coverage for a manager. I'm now doing coverage for an agent. I've scrapped the writing because you'd have to be crazy to want to be a writer, and I'm an agent or something. And then that will give it. So there's no direct way. I wish there were. It comes hook or crook. It comes 1,000. In fact, there are great stories. Most of the writers I know have great stories about how they got an agent, how they got a manager. There's no direct, but by the way, the first piece of it is killer script. There ain't no getting around it. You've got to write an amazing script.
Let's pull up this question. I think it ties in. Yeah. I know, John, you got to come more. Got to join us.
Yeah.
All right. Matthew says, when do you know it's time to start sending your first script out to managers, agents, film festivals, etc.? So this is the step right before what Chris was just asking about. So Chris was saying, what do you do when you know it's ready? How do you know it's ready? How do you know that your script is?
I mean, you guys have created a great thing for these writers because they can get feedback. And you get feedback. I mean, I teach advanced screenwriting here at NYU, and one of the themes this last week, I said to them, you've got to begin to ask the right questions of your script. And that's a really hard thing to be objective, but when the script is there, I mean, if you're getting feedback from people and you're saying, and they're saying it's not there yet, but if you're getting feedback from people who are saying, well, it's there. I mean, I always point this out with Alexi. I hope I embarrass her, but when she wrote Internet, everybody in that class went, this thing is done. This script is done. And it was. Did I answer? I can never tell if I'm answering questions or I'm just running around in a circle with my tail cut off. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think that the other important thing to note here, though, is when you hit a point where, okay, ready? Your script could always be better, but you do reach a point of diminishing returns, and you do reach a point where now you're just effing with it. Now you're just like, you're over kneading the bread. You need to leave it alone and move on. Because say, okay, best case scenario, you take this script that you think is fantastic, you sell it, right? Somebody wants to take it and they want to make it. Odds are super, super high that they're not going to say, we like it as is, bundle it up, let's go. They're going to say, we like it. We have some notes for you. We want you to change some things, right? You almost always are going to get producers' notes on that script, and you're going to have to do new drafts. So I think that, John, would you agree with that? I want to make sure that that's accurate.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the funny, by the way, don't let me forget Mark Strain here. I want to come back to Hurt Locker in a second, but you know, I was thinking about this earlier today when I was thinking about this class and AMA and all that stuff. You know, you deliver to the studio, and they get it, and they come back, and you have either a good executive or not so good executive or a shitty executive, and they don't really understand story. But if it's good enough, then it gets moved to a director. The director's life is at stake, because if that script's not working, he's going down the toilet. So when you go into the room with a director who's saying, okay, now we have to do another set of notes, and you got to shape this thing, and I'm not here to throw bouquets at you. I'm not here to compliment you. I'm here, and if you can't write the script that I need, because I'll lose my job, my career will tank if I spend $80 million making this movie and it tanks, I'm done. I'm sorry to be so pragmatic about this. This is the way it works. And that director will sit with you day after day after day after day, every page, because they're shaping it, because it has to be perfect before we go into production. So there are always notes. It's always making it better. Those experiences, by the way, which I hope you all get the opportunity to have, they are, you know, they're a great experience with regards to knowing how to be demanding of your script, the next script, how you must be demanding of the script, and again, asking those hard questions. Not, do I love this scene? The question is, does this scene demand to be in the movie? It's a hard question.
I saw something I'll have to show you, John. I saw a little meme that I think you'd find amusing. I'll pull it up eventually. But we have a few tie-in questions to this question that I think that we can hit real quick before going back to some.
Alexi, can you hold that for 1 second?
Sure.
Can I just say, Mark, hi, John, Hurt Locker, Sergeant James. He's okay. So this goes back. I mean, we're digressing a little bit. Adam's grinning because he knows what my take on this movie.
I know what
he's a good guy. He's a good guy. Sergeant James is an anti-hero. His flaw is he's an adrenaline junkie, and we know that in Act 1 because he keeps walking up to bombs about to blow his ass up, and yet, so in the third act, when he goes home to his wife and that infant and the child, and he walks away from them, he abandons his family because he's true to his character. He's true to his true nature, which is, I'm an adrenaline junkie and I'm not going to correct my flaw. It's a great anti-hero. He's a good guy because he did what he had to do. And Jeremy Renner is great in that part because there's that great scene when he's talking to the infant, to the baby, and he's saying, you got to do what you love, man. You got to do what you love. And the next thing we know, he's stepping off a plane going back to war. Anyway, Mark, I hope that makes sense.
I want to show you this, John.
Yeah, anti-hero.
Yeah, I want to show you this real quick. I don't care if if this is awkward, I need to show you this meme, and this is the time I have you as a captive audience. Are you ready?
I think I am. I don't know. Adam's laughing, so
what
apparently I'm not ready.
Here we go. This made me laugh, John.
I'm going to
I
this
saw this.
paragraph. You don't need it. What? It doesn't. So perfect. So perfect. Those guys are so repulsive. I kind of love them. Yeah.
That's your trend.
I'm going to by the way, the operative line there is that I'm going to change the whole plot.
Yeah.
To keep it. And that, by the way, that's every writer you'll ever meet. Every writer you'll ever meet has gone, I've loved this scene. I love this scene. I love this scene. It doesn't fit in the movie. I'll change the movie. Which, by the way, is stupid. That's stupid. And every writer does it. So, you know. Yeah.
Let's do some rapid fire questions, Alexi. We want to catch up a little bit.
Sure. So rapid fire questions, real quick. So when we were talking about how many drafts, like sending out your script and things like that, Sylvester asked how many drafts before you decide, okay, I'm going to stick with it and go for it. Theo said 4. I agree 4 is about the right number when you're new. You do, I mean, like, it's going to be different for everyone. It's going to really depend on how much you front loaded your work. But like, if you did it, if you went through the process, like how we recommend, which is really like breaking your story before you ever get to the page, most of your work, is carding, is doing a beat sheet, is building out your outline, your tent pole, doing all these things. Then by the time you get to it, you'll have like probably a fugly draft no one should ever see in your entire life. That is your true first draft. Then you'll have what is actually draft 2, but you're going to tell everyone is your first draft, and that you might show to your friends and get their initial feedback. Then you will do a rewrite, which you tell everyone is your second draft, again, secretly your third. And then that'll have like most of the changes, and then you'll do a few more tweaks and you'll have 4. And that, I think, is kind of where I would expect to be.
And that's not including like passes for particular things. Like I would do, I like to think like, okay, I'm going to go through the script and just look at what this character is doing and punch up, or I'm just going to punch up the dialogue, or, I'm just going to like look at every sort of reference to time passing and making sure everything is consistent. Like those are like things you can do in like an hour or two. I wouldn't even count that towards a draft. What Alexi's referring to is like a fundamental, you've got to go and change shit. You've got to fix stuff. You got to replace scenes. You got to reorder scenes. You have to change context. Like that's, don't do that 20 drafts in, or else you're just moving shit around.
The other thing I hope is a note of optimism or a positive note is, your first script, your second script, your third script, you get better every script. This is a craft. It's, what's his name? Shelby, who built that's a strange metaphor, but who built the early Mustangs cars. He became better and better and better at his craft, and there's no shortcut. So the draft things, how many I don't know what the number is. This is obnoxious to say, but I wrote a script one time. I did 2 drafts and sold it.
John.
But
jerk.
I know. But by the way, I've written 5 drafts of other scripts, 10 drafts, and they didn't work. You know the story. Peter Abrams, that buddy of mine, who these 2 writers came in, they pitched him an idea. They weren't with the guild. It was the first script, or maybe their second script, and Peter said it's a movie. But you guys, and Peter told me, he said I made those guys write 14 drafts. And he didn't pay him.
It's terrible.
And he said he got to the 14th draft. He said, I got to the 14th draft, and he said, okay, boys, we've got a movie. I'm going to Warner Brothers. We'll sell it tomorrow. He went into Warner Brothers. He said, here's the script. This is the movie. What do you think? They said, green light, we'll make it. What was the movie? Wedding Crashers.
What? He still should have paid him.
So he said, well, they got paid. They had careers. But he said they didn't know what they had. They had no tools. They had no craft. He said, I knew they had a brilliant idea. Guys go to weddings to sleep with girls. You know, and one guy falls. Anyway, but those four. So he should have paid him, yes. But what they learned in those 14 drafts from a veteran producer was craft. It's craft.
And because they didn't front load the work with a coherent outline, they had to do 14 drafts. Right?
Peter told me, he said they had no idea. He said when they stumbled into his office and said, this is about these two guys and they crash weddings, blah, blah, blah. And he said, I was sitting there looking at him going, by the way, this happens to me with some frequency in advanced screenwriting. This is the first script that most of these students have written, first feature script they've written. And sometimes, actually once a year, I hear an idea and I go, oh shit, it's a movie. And you don't have the chops to write it.
Oof.
Now you're going to learn those chops. That's my job. I'm going to beat them and kick them until they do. But I've had that happen. I had that happen once a year. Somebody will say, here's an idea, and they have no idea how brilliant it is, which is kind of charming. You kind of go, oh my God. Do you have the chops? Oh, you don't, because this is your first script. Yeah.
Sure. Let's see.
By the way, that was supposed to be optimistic. Did I go the wrong way?
No, I think it was optimistic.
Here's one. Do you have to have an agent to be a successful screenwriter? You need an agent or manager to sell.
Yeah, you need a representative.
That should be your first step.
Well, so I'm gonna backtrack that a bit. You're not gonna be writing a spec script with nothing out in the world and have an agent or a manager who likes you and just wants to represent you and be your friend. For sure. That's not gonna happen. What is most likely gonna happen is that you're gonna write a complete script. So I'll tell you what happened to me, and then maybe other people can talk about it too. But what I did is I wrote my script in John's class, internet, submitted it to contests. Because of the contests, managers and agents read it. I got connected with a couple managers. We chatted. They didn't want to represent me yet because I only had one thing, right? So they wanted to wait until I had a second script to see, like, I don't even know what her thing is. Like, what is going to be the thread that connects this script and other scripts? Like, can she do this again? Like, what's the, things like questions like that. So then I wrote a second script, and one of the managers and I really hit it off, and then we signed. And then the way that you get an agent is you don't get, so that happened without even selling the script, to be clear, right? And then a manager's job is going to be to develop you as a writer. They're investing more in you than the particular scripts you have right then. Like, they do care about those, but it's more about you. And then an agent doesn't come. Yeah. An agent does not come on board until you're selling, right? They are the script people. Like, they're the business side. So say you were about to close a deal with like your manager got the script to Warner Brothers. It was looking good. An agent might hop on then. But it would be as the deal is happening. They're not.
Yeah, agents just brokering the deal.
Yeah. They're not like, early stages. So you're gonna write your first script with no representation. You're gonna try to use that as a calling card to get representation, as in like a manager, and you probably need more than one. And then from there, when you're actually going to sell something, an agent will want to jump on. And usually, if your manager's good, they're the ones, or the studio's the one who's like connecting, pulling in the agent, something like that.
Right. And the agent manager, she can be compatible. Yeah, that's absolutely accurate. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Let's go to the next one.
Carl? Yeah. Thanks, Carl. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know if anybody read the short story. So we're going to discuss that.
Oh, so we're going to do that next time to give people time to read it, because we haven't sent it out yet. Otherwise,
you
we just
didn't send
talking
it?
about.
I thought you guys were
No, we
gonna
haven't
send
sent
it
it out yet because we didn't. We want to give
me and
people
John
time
or me and Adam want to read it, and then we're gonna do it that way. But
Okay.
But I have read it. I could talk about it with you, John. I would say.
But we want everybody.
It's not really your tone, is it, Alexi?
No.
She has notes. I haven't read it yet, John. So
no, one thing I will say, which not spoil it though, is that I didn't see your twist, and I felt like a moron for not seeing it. So that is my note to you. So good job on that. I was like, what? No. So that's good.
Made perfect sense. Well, we're talking in a vacuum right now. This is rude. So yeah, let's keep going with AMA here.
So
I'm getting excited about it.
But everybody should read it so we could talk about it. I mean, or not. I mean, maybe people don't want to read it.
No, I think we totally should.
I think we absolutely should. So for people who weren't around before, the thing that we're talking about is that John has written a short story that he pitched loosely a few coffee classes ago, something that we talked about. And he wrote the short story. And our hope is that we will send it out to everyone. I'll probably post it in the Discord and send it as an email to the people who are on the coffee class list. And John will come back and we will all critique the F out of him.
Well, yeah, that's fine. That's great. That's fine.
Yeah.
But also one of the reasons that I wanted to do this that I think might be helpful or maybe not, but is that I talked about the first time we kind of talked about this. I mentioned that where the kernel of the idea started and how it evolved, what the creative process was. I say that without trying to be too presumptuous, but what the process was from a kernel of an idea to a story. And I think that's important. Maybe it's not, but I hope it's important for some people here to say, if you've got an idea, start small. It comes from anywhere. The person who was asking about, have writer's block. This was literally a piece of an idea, and I went, I know, I got it. It's a story. And then I began to build it. And that's why I think it might be helpful to, before we leave though, we'll come back and I'll just tell you the 50 words or less, the kernel of the idea that started the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for sure, so I was being a little facetious. We're going to talk a lot about how stories are made, how John came from this idea to the story, why he made the choices that he made.
We're going to totally cover that in depth.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. It's gonna be more than us saying, "Why, John?"
What a shitty short story.
It's gonna be fun. And John, I think this is the first full work of yours that I've read. Did you know that?
Were you? Yeah. Again, we're speaking in a vacuum. We can't do this because it's rude to everybody else. But were you surprised with the tone, the voice?
I started reading it, and at first I was like, "Huh." And then the way that I think I understand how your brain thinks now.
That's frightening. I'm sorry to hear that.
So you're like, oh man, I don't know if I can talk to John anymore now. I
really liked it.
What a piece of shit he is. Yeah.
I think your voice. I understand how you started as a short story writer, because I think that your voice is very strong for that medium. I like when people read it, you'll see his style, and I think that it's a really effective one.
I thought the idea was great, so I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to talking about it.
So we should go back to some of these questions because
we've got so many. We've got 14.
Right.
Okay, let's go. Let's hit them, and I'll try to be more expedient.
So here's a question. Oh, John.
What's this? If you have a movie. Sorry. I mean, I'm laughing at not Maria. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at. Wait, Alexi.
Other way.
Alexi. I'm laughing at Alexi because she started laughing and Alexi, why did you go? Oh wait, why you? Two protagonists.
Yeah, John is an ardent believer in one protagonist.
Yeah, Maria, too. If you have a movie with two protagonists, the problem is one doesn't show up to the end. Yeah, if one doesn't show up until the end, it's not a protagonist. So I'm trying not to be flip. One protagonist. We have to know who we're following. Two protagonists. It's confusing to the audience. So one protagonist with one objective. One protagonist with one objective. That way we know whose journey. That's the hero's journey. We know whose journey we're going on. I don't know the story you're talking about, but chances are, if you say it doesn't show up till the end, that's a reversal or something. I don't know.
There are some exceptions, but they're extremely rare, and they're usually films like Magnolia that like have 8 storylines that are all interconnected. Can you say there's one protagonist? No, probably not. But it's also a 3.5-hour movie, and you probably shouldn't be, modeling it after that.
Yeah. So let's circle to Little Miss Sunshine, which things like that, like an ensemble film, people like to use that as a counter to this. So John, how would you look at Little Miss Sunshine?
Yeah, that's a great. No, Lexi, you and I have talked about this before, but Little Miss Sunshine, people will say multiple protagonists. Is actually not. There's one protagonist. It's the father. How do we know it's the father? Because he's flawed and because he changes in the third act. The way you can appreciate who the protagonist is if he or she changes. They go through change. They evolve as human beings, and that is certainly true in Little Miss Sunshine. The people, the family members who get into the van, all are very distinct and wonderfully drawn. I love the movie, but they're all just there to create obstacles so that the protagonist cannot get them to San Diego. It's a road movie. Objective is beauty pageant. I think it's San Diego, and making it difficult to get there. But Ted, I think it's Ted. I think the father's name is Ted. I'm not sure, but anyway, he's the protagonist because by the end of the movie, he realizes that family is more important than anything, and he gets on stage and makes a fool of himself to spare his daughter.
I would actually say his flaw was his inner need was it's okay to be a loser in a world of winners and losers.
Yeah, right? I like that. Yeah.
Which he demonstrated by doing what John said. I think something that helps me think about it is your protagonist is not necessarily. I mean, it should be the person who's like at the center of the story, but it's the person who is defined by choice and change, right? It's defined by who's making the choices, who's making the choices that drive the story forward, and whose change is this whole story hinging on. So there's going to be a lot of. So sometimes, like in Little Miss Sunshine, you have little changes in the other characters. Like it's not that they're stagnant. This doesn't require other characters not to change at all. But the one who's making the big choices is Steve Carell's character, right? The dad.
No, not Steve Carell.
Not Steve Carell.
It's the dad.
I missed. Oh, you're right. What's his name?
Greg Kinnear. And Greg Kinnear, by the way, to your point, Greg Kinnear is the one who says, "We're going to San Diego."
Mm-hmm.
That launches. That's it.
I know him.
Do you know him?
Yeah. He used to live. When I was a baby, my mom lived in like the apartment down from him. So like,
really?
Yeah. No, not close. I've met him.
He's a very
talented.
He's a very talented guy, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, look, a question for me. What do you think about screenplay / movies that fail the Bechdel test? I'm going to be a little more forgiving, maybe, than I should be. I'm going to say it really, really depends on the movie, but there are some where it's just completely egregious, right? Like, I think sometimes you're going to have films that are... You could get into like the nuances of this all day, but like if you're doing like a film that's supposed to be historical and it's set in a place where there are only men and the story you're telling is contained in such a way that it only makes sense for men to be there, then I could understand why your story might not pass the Bechdel test. But I think that in general, it's something to be aware of when it's the most offensive is when it's not on purpose like that, right?
Yes.
It's when you just happen to stumble into it. And
it's when you have a conversation with two women and the situation is such that it's like the male writer can't imagine the women talking about anything else other than men. Like that's the most classic thing. Like sort of like, well, what do women talk about? Well, obviously the men in their lives, right?
Yep.
That's the most egregious and terrible.
So the Bechdel test, for people who are unfamiliar, is just this loose thing that is like, are there two women in your story who talk to each other about something other than a man? That's it. And it is shocking how many films
fail. Shocking amount fail. So if there are women in your story, make sure that it can pass the Bechdel test. As also, it's a push. It's actually a push to be a better writer, because you have to think like, okay, who are these characters? What do they actually care about? And what are they actually talking about? You know, if you're, you know, somebody who's not a woman, and it's a stretch for you to sort of go outside of your experience, really ask yourself better questions about like, okay, what would a conversation in this part of the story that advances X plot point actually be like? How do I access that? You know, like so much of those bad scenes that are, you know, people make fun of is just laziness or shallowness.
Here's an interesting note. Veronica says Ratatouille fails the Bechdel test, for example. Oof.
Is that right?
I wouldn't be surprised.
But there are stories where I don't think Ratatouille is like an egregious like example. Like I don't think like you should arbitrarily be like, oh, it failed the Bechdel test, therefore it's not like worthwhile or good. It's more of like when it's a story. Like I think there's stories that you know, it's okay that There'll Be Blood doesn't have women in it, but if it was about a woman and it failed the Bechdel test, I would think that's egregious and terrible.
That was Rabia. Hi, Rabia.
It's your bud.
Hey, how you doing?
This is my opinion.
Godfather, yeah, not surprisingly. Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
A lot of great films. I think we need more films that are from women point of view.
I think that if you have a female protagonist, you best be passing the Bechdel test. And it is surprising how few do. And also, I don't think that there's any reason why Ratatouille could only have one female character. I think that, like, in that instance, I would say that it is a little bit glaring, because there was no reason that all these characters needed, you know. So, but I do understand Adam's point that it's like, it doesn't necessarily mean that film is like unworthy and like a piece of trash and that you can't take things from it and enjoy it. It's just something to note, you know, like it's something to pay attention to in your own writing.
And by the way, and some of this is just the culture and where we are now. This is changing. Changing, or it should have changed a long time ago, and it should change more. But you know, we're evolving. We're getting better.
I think a better point of view for it, like if you're going in being like, oh my God, I need to make my script more feminist, it needs more female characters talking to each other. Don't take it from the point of view of, oh, this is a chore I have to do, or out of fear. Make it from the point of view of, well, isn't it just more interesting? Like we've heard thousands of conversations between male characters talking about male friendship and things that aren't women, right? Just sort of thinking about it like, well, think of all the untapped depth of human experience that hasn't been touched on. It's just more interesting. So like you could argue pushing yourself to go deeper with your female characters and to actually have conversations is being less boring. So I don't know, just don't be boring.
More original. There was a question about
and by the way, Alexi, and my short story is a female protagonist.
Hey, there we go. Does it pass the Bechdel test?
Ooh. Does
it? I don't think it does. I don't think it does.
I don't think it does.
I don't think
but it's okay. It's because of the content. I think it's acceptable.
If it's arbitrary, it's this is more of like a litmus test of like overall trends. Yeah,
it was more like when you take this Bechdel test and you apply it to all the movies that came out last year, people would assume that like only a few would fail, and like when you have a year that like all of them fail, you're like, holy crap, you know. It's for that point, really. There was a question that was about originality that I wanted to pull up.
It was, do filmmakers
there we
pursue
go. kick in with Kaya. Says, do filmmakers look for originality in the film world, or just the business aspect of what a movie can bring?
Do filmmakers look for originality in a film world?
I think
I'm confused by this question.
The question is basically, do filmmakers, like, are they aspiring for originality, or is their primary motivation to sell a movie that's commercially successful? I think it's everybody who's ever directed a movie wants it to be good and wants it to tell a story that connects with people. Like, I don't think very few people come in being like, I'm going to sell, we're going to kill it, we're going to make a lot of money. Like, people want to make money, they want to return investment because they want to make a second movie, but everybody has like an aspiration to the material, even if it's Hallmark, well, maybe not Hallmark. What do you think?
Yeah, I think an interesting question. A filmmaker's really good, really strong filmmakers are responding to a voice that it's a little bit what Alexi and I were talking about, sensibility. They're responding to a voice. I just saw a wonderful, wonderful film called Red Rocket by Sean Baker. Tiny little film. Sean Baker, I think, is an amazing director. Amazing. Tangerine and the Florida Project, and now this film, Red Rocket. Red Rocket is amazing. Now, Sean Baker can go there, man. He can go deep. He is fearless with the material. So his films are very original in tone and substance. He's brilliant because he knows how to make a film very, 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 very inexpensively, and now he's created a body of work so people want to work with him. But he does not. He's not playing the game for the studio or how much money it can bring in. He's a very, very genuine voice. If you look, and not to knock him, but if you look at a director, like Ron Howard, who I think, makes remarkable films, but he's making a film for a broad audience. And I think a broad audience is his sensibility. He's in there. You would never take a Ron Howard film and confuse it with a Sean Baker film. The same is true with Campion. Campion is, if you go, I went and saw Power of the Dog, and then the next night I rewatched The Piano. Oh my God. She's so true to her sensibilities and her instinct. She's so good at just pulling tension out of nothing that she's a pleasure to watch. Not everybody likes her. And by the way, studios are like terrified of her because she makes expensive films and they do not necessarily appeal to a broad, big audience. So there's room, but most really good filmmakers, they have a pedigree, they have a sensibility, it's who they are, and it's the kind of film they make. I think Spielberg's sensibilities are popcorn, really. I mean, he can make anything because his craft is so sophisticated. He can make any movie. But if you said to Spielberg, I'm guessing, he always goes back to popcorn, to kind of big, broad sensibility films.
I agree. I want to pull up this question real quick. Patrick says, related to the Bechdel test, how often do screenwriters interview others and work with experts or get other people's perspective to improve their scripts? If you mean as related to like diversity and things, my answer is not enough. In publishing, it's much more common. My understanding is that it's much more common in publishing to have actual paid people called sensitivity readers who will go through and read things like to make sure that it's like sensitive to, whatever issues you're concerned about. Film, you do have some awareness, but I've not heard of it being to the extent that you have in publishing with like sensitivity readers and all that. I mean, you still get things made like, what was it, Sia's thing not too long ago, where it was about autism and they casted a girl who wasn't autistic, and it was like really offensive to a lot of the autistic community and things like that kind of thing.
Also,
happens
the story itself had problems that were,
yeah,
it wasn't just the casting.
No, but I would say it's, if you're a writer, it's a good thing on you to talk to more people, and that a lot of people are willing to talk.
You
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, one of the fun things about being a writer and is deep diving into a culture that you otherwise would never have access to. I was working on something not too long ago, and I called a private investigator, and I said, "Would you meet with me?" And he said, "Yeah." And so we met for like an hour. What a strange dude, man. What a strange character. I mean, I could have stayed in that room for 4 hours. But what I got while in that room is just texture stuff. He had a bunch of clocks. There were clocks everywhere. Some of them were working, some of them weren't. And finally I said, "What's with the clocks?" And he goes, "I don't know, I just like clocks." So you could steal that. It doesn't mean anything except for you can steal it. The other thing he said to me, and I'm paraphrasing, but not by much, but I stole this. Adam probably, because I'm just out there just stealing. Creeping? Is that what you guys said?
That's what Alexa.
Anyway, I called you a creeper. Yeah.
No, I'd call you a thief.
Thief, yeah. Either way, it's a compliment, and I embrace them both. But this guy says to me, I love this guy. So I spent a while with, and this is why you interview people and why you meet with people. But he says to me, he goes, yeah, I get hired a lot of domestic shit. And he said, if a wife hires me to follow her husband, 95% of the time, he's cheating. If a guy hires me to follow his wife, 20% of the time, she's actually cheating. He said, but the guys think the chicks are always cheating. I mean, I kind of went, what? And, and this guy was a character. This guy was a piece of work, man. I mean, I couldn't get enough of him. But so that kind of information that he's got by meeting with him, spending an hour with him, I'll shut up after this. But I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "Really, I just sit around all day with a camera." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I sit outside places and wait people to come out and they take pictures of them." I mean, what a shitty life. But this guy, anyway. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent. I thought the guy was fascinating. Everybody else is going, God, that's the most boring thing I've ever heard. I thought it was absolutely
No, it's interesting, I think your morbid curiosity is one of your it's one of your best characteristics. I think it's really done a lot of good for you.
It's my most endearing.
No. You're supremely confident. And you have a morbid curiosity. And you're basically a good guy. Those are three things. Basically a good guy. Yeah. That's how I describe it.
But maybe not.
Oh, here's
a question right here. This one from Sylvester that we want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, I'd like both of these.
Okay, cool. So Sylvester says, what are some of the mistakes young rookie screenwriters would make, and how can we prevent that from happening? What are some of the things we should keep in mind to not make too many mistakes?
Wow. I have an opinion.
Take it.
It's like one thing that's just like tied to a lot of other things. A huge mistake beginning screenwriters make is they start writing before they actually have a coherent outline. And
Ditto.
You'll just get yourself in endless problems. Problems. You can make a 5-draft project, a 14-draft project by just because writing feels good. It feels like it feels official, right? But really work your shit out. Make the story outline really tight. Just get all the details out on the page. Figure the shit out first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's
John,
I piggyback on that. That's exactly
Lexi,
my answer.
Do you have something different to say?
I was gonna say, John, I feel like your thing is like, it is a branch of that. But if I remember right, every single time someone would read something in class, something wasn't clicking, you would just be like, "What's the objective? What's the objective? You have no objective.
What's driving the story? Yeah, what's the objective? Oh, and then and by the way, the answer to that is usually this. Well, it's
love.
kind of, yeah. And by the way, if you ever say that the protagonist is kind of or sort of or just, you're wrong. It's the only thing they care about. Then you're in the ballpark. But yeah. But Adam, yeah, people start writing. You're right. It feels like I'm accomplishing. I wrote 15 pages today. Oh, Jesus. By the way, 15 pages are going to have to get thrown out, but that's fine. But do the outline.
Unless you've done an outline and you're basically just trying to get it
right.
on paper.
Yeah. But no.
So the main fix for this, I would say, for the objective problem at the very least, something that I learned from John is that your objective should be tangible, as in literally you can grab it. Don't try to fudge tangible. Literally tangible, specific. It's not a girlfriend, it's the girlfriend, right? Timely. You have to get the girlfriend in time. You have to get Adam in time for prom, right? And important. It has to be the most
tangible,
important
and timely.
So that is tangible, specific, timely, and important. And if your objective is all of those things, you're probably in good shape.
Yesterday, I believe was it the 75th? No. It was the 90th anniversary of Casablanca.
My favorite film.
Casablanca, the objective is Ilsa. But some people would pitch that and say the objective is to become a better man. That's never the objective. I have students all the time who go, well, his protagonist is make the world a better place. Wrong. His objective is something tangible. And in the course of pursuing that objective, he or she makes the world a better place.
Because there's a complete relationship. In Act 2 is all defined by objective and obstacles as the stakes get higher, right? So if your objective is to make the world a better place, well, what are the obstacles for making the world a better place? You're never going to come up with really concrete, good situations. If it's the suitcase of money on the plane by midnight, well, you can come up with great obstacles, right? Like, oh shit, the tire goes out. Oh my God, there are no cars to get to the place. You could think about things that are, and as they escalate in importance, emotional, philosophical, you can go deep, but you're never going to find good. I think that's why people get stuck in Act 2. They don't have good objectives.
That's right.
They don't go to obstacles.
Yeah, absolutely
right. Yes. And then here, John, as a follow-up question.
What?
Do objectives change? That's another one of his.
You're trying to push my buttons. No, they do not. No, they do not. Because you can't say, Alexi and Adam have heard this 1,000 times. Just bear with me. I still like it. You can't say that Romeo goes, I want Juliet. By the way, that's Shakespeare. Romeo wants Juliet. Romeo wants Juliet. Halfway through the film, he can't say, you know what? Hang on. I've changed my mind. I want Sally.
So, John, I disagree on this. I think you'll agree with my definition.
Okay.
I think Act 2 is where that's true. I think at the end of Act 1, the protagonist will commit to an objective. And throughout all of Act 2, which is the majority of the story, they cannot change the objective. But I do think there are times where they have the same objective through Act 3, like Toy Story. It's always, bringing Buzz back to Woody till the end, right?
Yeah.
But in Star Wars, it's all about delivering the droids to the Rebel base. They do that at the end of Act 2. And they give them a new objective, which is, oh shit, you got to blow up the Death Star with the plans. It's connected to the objective. It's kind of like a causality change.
So that's
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. I'm a little rigid about it because I'm dealing with students who don't understand Act 2. And and Veronica, you may have been making a different point, but I would say in Act 2, you don't want to change that objective. Yeah.
And Act 2 is most of the story anyway. So
yeah.
So this is like, in general, you'll say that. So actually, I'm going to ask you to explain something in a second. But like in general, your objective does not change while they're chasing it. But sometimes your protagonists have an objective that's based on their flaw. To go back to Adam's like guy who's selfish, but like really it's like if I don't get the corner office, then like I'm a nobody, kind of a flawed belief. So his objective the whole time is literally the corner office, right? His inner need is realizing that the only thing he needs to be a fulfilled person is his family, right? So he's all through Act 2 pursuing this objective. And then this is a unique thing that tends to happen with flawed objectives, right? You get to the end of Act 2, usually the protagonist gets it and realizes it's not what they wanted.
That's right.
So then for Act 3, they have like this little mini push where now he's going to say, no, I can't deliver the presentation. I'm going to run as fast as I can across town to my child's soccer game. You know, it's that moment where you now have
and that defines resolution.
I'm going to be back in time for Christmas. And that's like the objective, the mini objective of Act 3, where there was a flawed one. But
and that mini objective usually explains the resolution of the character and the resolution of flaw.
And the last objective of the story is usually the life or death highest stakes moment, right? Like in Little Sunshine, the objective through all of Act 2 is get to Redondo Beach. And then at the end, it's, oh my God, we got to get through this beauty pageant. You know, we got protect all from this beauty pageant, right? And Adam, just a side note, because I want to talk about Star Wars for just a second.
That's what it was going to be about.
Okay, good. So in the comics, like the objective was always fight the Empire, and the droids and destroying the Death Star was sub-objective of that. You could say that in like a macro point of view, but from the point of view of a screenwriter trying to construct plots, the way I would see it is you have your Act 1, which establishes the problem of the story, that sets up what the objective for Act 2 of the story of the plot is going to be. In Act 2, the objective is deliver the droids to the rebel base. Everything that happens from the time they leave on the Millennium Falcon, or from the time they get to Mos Eisley till they actually deliver the plans, is all Act 2. And yeah, you could say like, oh, it's all against the Empire, but that's not tangible, specific, and important with a timeline, right? The droids are a physical thing that the Empire is trying to get at. So there's huge obstacles. All the obstacles in the plot are about getting the objective from point A to point B. And so like from a plot constructive point of view, like you'd say, oh, it's the droids. But from a macro thematic point of view, you're like, yeah, that's all subsets of fighting the Empire. So you can get like a little bit of semantic arguments about the stuff like that don't really matter.
So Adam, the thing I wanted to ask you to talk about was what I think that Patrick, no, I mean, it's related to this, is what I think Patrick is hitting on is that the objective wasn't to fight the Empire. Narratively, the objective was not to fight the Empire. That might have been the motivation. And we very intentionally separate out the motivation from the objective in order to account for this, because we kept finding that like what John was saying was happening in class, like where people are like, he just wants to make the world a better place. That's not an objective, but it might be a motivation, right?
Right. It might be an inner need.
Yeah. And so that helps to separate it out. So like your motivation can be intangible. It can be just kind of like an idea, a thought, like who they are, but that's only ever going to be their motivation. They still need to be driven by a very specific, tangible objective. So in this case, I might say that it's possible that Luke's motivation was to fight the Empire, but then his objective was deliver.
Like that's the the objective is the means of the end for fighting the Empire, right?
Right.
We're almost at time, but do we have one more?
We have a lot. Honestly, John, we need to do this again. You have a lot of questions.
Oh, okay. Well, should we do one more? Is there any? What do we got?
Well, there's a lot. Let's see.
Sylvester, you know, I was funny. Somebody asked me to guest lecture in a class this morning. Yeah. Somebody asked me to guest lecture in a class this morning, which the class, which I was a guest, but it's on writing a short film. And Yeah, I don't know if you're being facetious or not, but you can't really do a 1 minute short.
It's extremely difficult but I think it's there's some extremely rare exceptions, like the Pixar shorts.
Pixar shorts are great. There's that one by Spike Jonze with the lamp. Actually, I think it was a commercial.
That's a commercial. Yeah, it's an IKEA commercial.
The lamp that's outside. But I mean, in Spike Jonze, it just gives you some idea how good he is. There's a film that maybe you want to write these down. There are a couple of good ones. There's a short film. It's 7 minutes long. It's called Based on a True Story. Based on a True Story. It's by Jacob Kafka. It's a little hard to find, but if you don't write down Jacob Kafka, you won't be able to find it, I don't think. It's animated at 7 minutes.
I'll tell you where it is.
Oh, okay.
I'm writing the
Sylvester,
short.
your point's good, though. With short films, they're very demanding. Well, I would say that the best record, what you do need, and you've heard me say this before, you still, if you've got a 10-minute, let's say a 10-minute short, then you have 2 pages, 2 minutes to define the protagonist and the objective. Then you've got about 4 pages to pursue the objective, and then you've got 1 page for resolution. So it's so fast, it's so demanding, it's very demanding. I'll give you a couple other examples. One is called The Crush. The Crush is a great short film. It's about 17 minutes long. The God of Love by Luke Matheny is a great film, won an Oscar. The God of Love. Lunch Date is a great short film. I love a Scandinavian film, very dark, called The Last Farm. So those are all, but you'll see in those, you've got the basics, the things they never skip is protagonist with objective.
I think that in general, when people are talking about like these little like mini 1 minute movies, they're not really complete stories. They tend to be like setup, payoff. They tend to be like a very quick, like they're not a complete story necessarily. It's like, it's like a joke, a setup, payoff.
That's kind of what Spike Jonze's lamp thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Although you really empathize with that lamp. You're like,
oh God. I mean, it's just Spike Jonze. It's just that good. Yeah.
I'm posting links to the ones that I can. If I remember right, God of Love, you can buy it on Amazon, but it's very hard to like find otherwise. I think you have to buy it on Amazon. Yeah, but I posted, if writing the short class is entirely free, and honestly, you don't even have to get into the class to watch Jacob Kafka's film. We have it on the information page that I just linked to. You can watch Jacob Kafka's Based on a True Story there. And then I just posted links to The Crush, which is very intense, and you should keep that in mind. Adam, what did you just link me to? Is that God of Love?
No.
Oh, okay. Lunch Date.
Oh, The Lamp.
Oh, The Lamp. I love that piece. It's
a minute-long commercial, but you have your protagonist, the lamp. You have an inciting incident. Oh my God, he gets replaced by another lamp that's nicer and better, and he's left out in the rain, and it's rains out on him. He's near the trash cans, and you see the woman, his old owner, turn on the new lamp, and he's looking out from the ground, and then you see the lamp. The dramatic music swells, and this man comes up and says, "What are you doing? This is not a person. This is just a lamp. He has no feelings." And the new one's much better, and then walks away.
It's so sad.
It's so sad.
So it made you empathize with the lamp, and then it's a joke, right? Setup, and then punchline. You're stupid for empathizing with the lamp. It's an inanimate object.
Oh, watch that one. It's a good one. But yeah, if we didn't get to your questions, we're always on the Discord. Just pop on in and ask, and me and Adam are there. The community's there. We would be happy to get to them, and of course, John will be back one of these days, and we're here every Friday.
Do we have 2 seconds?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Real quickly. So if you get a chance and you're interested in reading the short story, Lexi, did you send it or what happened?
No, we're sending it. We're going to post it in the Discord. We're going to send it out.
So the point that I'd like to make, and I know this is somewhat presumptuous, but I think that, again, it's the process. So what happened was, here's what happened. I was at a dinner party, 25 years ago to the dinner party, and this woman whose name is Marty said, "Oh my God, I came home. I was out of town for 2-3 days. I was out of town, and I came home, and I was unloading the dishwasher, and I found a wine glass with lipstick on it. And so when Jim got home, I confronted him and said, Jim, what's going on? You know, because I thought he had somebody he was having an affair. And then he said to his wife, Marty, look at the glass." And she said, "Okay, I'm looking at it." And he says, "Whose lipstick is it?" And he said, and she goes, "Oh, it's mine." And he goes, "Yeah, I just didn't run the dishwasher while you were gone." End of story. This is told at a dinner party. I thought that's a setup for a great, because what if it goes, what if it's not that clean? What if it takes off? So, and with that in mind, I began to play with the idea for this short story, which if you have a chance, you'll read and we can discuss. But to the young woman who was asking about writer's block, the stories are out there. They're out there. And you hear a line, you hear an anecdote, you hear a little story at a dinner party or a joke, and you go, wait a minute. That's a jumping off place. I know how to. Mm-hmm. And by the way, that's the fun of being a writer, is saying, oh, hang on, I can take that and run with it. So anyway.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll get that sent out to everybody. And yeah, for the person who asked about joining in on writers' rooms and like having table reads and things like that, we do that every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. So come on in. Our prompt for this week is they're always little almost always little scenes, the 2.5 pages. And the topic is that it's about subtext with a twist. So the prompt is that you're using subtext throughout. So the dialogue is all subtext, but then at the midpoint, an object changes everything. And that's the setup for your scene. You're just writing a little scene. We'll read it out, get some feedback, and go from there.
Okay. Well, this is fun.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks,
yeah. Happy
hope
to.
have you soon.
And I'll see you again soon, I hope.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
Thanks, everybody.